to a beep.
There isn't one now. We're now live.
We're now live. Waiting for a beep. There's no beep. He says, wait for the beep. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us at Seoul RC, doing our live waffle.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. It's been a while. We've had a bit of a break. We've been around the place and seen some stuff. Been good fun. We were out in Japan.
As you may know.
As you may know, which we keep ranting about, which was super awesome.
It was.
That was good. So yeah, we went and did that.
We're gonna try and ease back into this a bit this week because we've got quite a lot to talk about from Japan, obviously, and other stuff that we've done over the time that we've been off air, as it were. But we also have a load of new stuff that's probably going to have to wait till next week. But we're going to try and cover some of the basic stuff that people are asking us about at the moment. So we should cover everything we need to cover.
The first one is Japan.
We'll be here in 6 hours.
Was it Andy Brunton on the question thing was going, how many Japans did it say to Japan or something? Yes. Anyway, it's one. There's only one Japan in Japan.
Yeah. But it was pretty good. We went out there at the start of December. I was there for 2 weeks, you were there for 3 weeks.
Yep.
Got to do some very cool stuff. Got some pretty...
Got our butts kicked.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Got to do some pretty cool stuff for full-size drifting that we wouldn't have normally got to do. Yeah. Your average person wouldn't get to do. Had a few doors open for us, which was quite nice.
What about day one, Jay? How was that for you?
Day one was off.
How, was it 20 years of you going, I want to go to Japan? Yeah. And then we go there.
For those that don't know me that well, I've wanted to go to Japan since I was a kid. And it's usually been money, but there's been one thing or another that's always stopped me going when I've been planning it. And finally got to go. It's a bit of a rushed thing. I didn't think it was going to happen, and then all of a sudden it's like, we'll have to make it work. So we went, and we arrived at the airport and drove straight to a drift day. We didn't even go to a hotel or drop our bags off or anything. Went straight to.
Where was the drift day at?
I can't remember the name of the place. What was the resort?
I can't remember the name, but what sort of resort was it?
It was a ski resort in the mountains, which was quite odd because I thought we were driving to a hotel because the schedule we had said we were going to drop our stuff off at a hotel. So I was like, wow, we're staying in the mountains? I didn't know this. And then we turn the corner, it's like, oh wait, no, we're going to a drift day. That's kind of cool. And there was some pretty cool drivers there. First day we had Hibino, we had Taniguchi, we had Tanaka, we had, I forget the other guy's name. Some pretty cool drivers at that first day. It was essentially just a car park drift meet practice day thing. But the level of driving was pretty high, but even the people that were obviously relatively new to the hobby were pretty good and understand and learning fast, and the attitude is very different.
The main thing that surprised you was how chilled it was, how respectful everyone is of each other, and at the end of the day, when even the D1 drivers pull out a brush,
the big thing that impressed me was nobody ducks off early. Nobody knows that it's finishing in an hour, so they head off so that they haven't got to help pack up and clean up and stuff. And like you say, you got Hibino and Taniguchi that are there getting brushes and sweeping the rubber off the car park, and
same as anyone else.
Same as everyone else. You know, we're there, we're doing the same thing, and they're no better than anyone else. So everyone's equal. And the guys that were new to it were pretty respectful. And just because you're a D1 driver doesn't mean you can cut in a queue. Doesn't mean you can do an extra few laps on the runs. It's like everyone's the same.
In fact, the D1 drivers are probably the most polite in terms of not hogging.
Exactly. They know they get to practice tomorrow or next week or whatever it is. So they're really chilled, and they'll let people take a little bit longer if they want to, or there's no rush. It's quite interesting. And it was pretty cold. Not as cold as it got later when we were at other places, but I was surprised at how many support people were there as well. You know, there was just with Tetsujin, there was two. There was Ponta and Idian that came along just to cook food and keep people.
Ponta and Idian are Team Tetsujin drivers as well.
Yeah, for us.
So Ponta's a girl and Idian's a guy.
Yeah,
and they go everywhere together.
What was the things that Ponta was cooking? The little pancake ball things. What are they called?
I can never say it. Okonomiyaki.
Yeah,
is that what it is?
They were pretty good.
Octopus balls. Not literally balls of an octopus.
I had beef balls, not literally beef balls. Balls of beef, and they were pretty good. They were pretty amazing.
And then they did me cheese ones.
I got handed them, not knowing what they were, and I was a bit like, I've heard somebody mention octopus, and I was like, please don't be octopus.
Well, the game that they play is actually you'll get because you normally get 6 in a tray, And the game that they play is they have one that's like super spicy. So basically, you'll all eat one, and then someone gets the dud one that's super spicy. You probably find it more tasty. Like, oh, I like the spicy one.
Quite probably.
But yeah, that was cool.
That was very fun. We got to drive Mizunaga's JZX 100 Mark II, which was very kind of him. It's the first time I've driven anything fun in
with the
world's
years. Smallest. You're driving like this. Not like normal. You know.
It's the first time I've sat in a bride seat that I actually fit in. So I now know the mark of or the make of or the model, even the bride seats that fit.
Bride Zeta 3.
Zeta 3. I fit. So that was pretty cool. But
I don't think it's so fit. I just think it's because the fiberglasses then they flex.
Yeah, but they were that steering was awful. I don't think it helped. As Mizunaga could kindly put some videos and photos and stuff of us driving, and he posted the video where there was a guy on the course next to me that was running a bit wide, and I was running a bit wide. And I was just like, I'm just getting in his way. I'm just getting in his way. This
is what tells me you should be a real drifter, because you've got the excuses ready.
Yeah.
No, there's something there. There was a breeze.
Yeah.
I didn't want to drift over those leaves. It was cruel.
But yeah, it was kind of funny because they picked the one video where it's like, man, I'm not even drifting in most of that video.
Yeah, but you were smiling.
It was
that's the main thing. And then, I don't know, I've been and done that stuff before, so it wasn't that, like, it was obviously a lot of fun, but it wasn't the highlights for me. I think the highlights for me, I'm going to say meeting Baba and literally having my butt kicked by Baba.
That was pretty cool.
We sort of, you know, I because I've been there a few times, I've seen a lot of really good drivers. And
you've never seen Baba, have you?
I'd never seen Baba. I'd seen other pros, and obviously Mizunaga, who is very good as well. But we're at Shift Circuit, used to be Chance, now it's Shift. And, you know, we're all sort of drifting around, and there's the dude who owns the shop who's really, really good. And basically, Baba turns up in his work overalls. Like, Baba's a mechanic. He works on full-size cars doing like MOTs or shack-ins. Yeah, basically he turns up, and it's kind of like, oh, right, you know, what are you running? And, you know, I've got my Duval, and Baba's got a Duval, just for himself to mess around with. He's sponsored by other companies, RC926. And yeah, he's just gave me a couple of settings and then goes, oh, try this, and goes out with his car, and it's mind-boggling. It totally changed between him and Renato from R31, that's totally changed my approach to tuning cars. I think the cars are so planted.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things that I learned when I was over there that was things. It was mostly things that we've done or tested in the past, but we didn't. I don't think we had the result from the tuning that makes it worth doing. So, for example, since being in Japan and coming back, I've softened everything up again, and I'm more interested in roll. And I'm actually on my chassis. I'm now not running GA26 on the rear, because we'll get to the changes that we're making in a bit. But I mean, for me, watching Bab was a bit of an eye opener, because there was things he was doing that I didn't think it would be possible for anyone to do in the way he was doing it. For example, he'd be following somebody, and that person would make a mistake, and Babel would react. You wouldn't be able to tell he's made a change. Yeah, it would look like he was already on that line, but he wasn't. He's made an adjustment where he's made it so fast and so small and so smoothly, the car doesn't look like anything's changed, but he wasn't on the same trajectory until he's
he got tons of
yeah, sorry, and until you realise afterwards he had it all planned to do a different line, and he's made an adjustment and run a completely separate line because
planned it all along. Yeah, he was always going to make that.
I think that's how you win, isn't it? Because it's not an adjustment, because it doesn't look like an adjustment. Basically,
but what I found interesting was his ability to, like, he was running double bull diffs, front and rear, and just his sheer ability to place the car in whatever style he felt like.
Yeah.
So he could snap it violently, or he could make it smooth
He could
or
go slow, he could go fast.
Yeah, exactly. It's the versatility, and that's
and the same as I forget his name, but the RC926 that was at
Hoshimiya?
the guy that was at Hokkaido.
Hokkaido?
Then
Not Hokkaido.
Hatano, sorry.
Hatano.
Sorry.
Hokkaido.
I was watching videos last night. Yeah. But yeah, Hatano. And he was very much the same. He was very smooth when he needed to be, but when he was having fun, he'd get a bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
And he was running a double ball diff setup, but it's the thing that I worked out, because I was like, I'll just put 2 ball diffs in. And I'll see if I can do it.
No.
But the thing I worked out was you have to be a super high level to be able to use a double ball diff, because a drift package from Yokomo for many years has come with
a double
ball diff. It's not a beginner's. It's a beginner's. You can use it as a beginner, but you won't get what they're getting from it at all.
Yeah.
And also the diffs have to be set perfectly to make them operate.
Which is hard.
It's hard if you're not used to it, but people like Tungsten can do it straight away.
Yeah, but you say that he can do it straight away. How long has Tungsten been doing RC?
That's true. That's very true. But it's the small subtle differences between their driving and because like you say, we're at Shift, we're at other tracks, and there's really good guys, really amazing people that if Baba hadn't turned up, you'd have been like, those guys are awesome. But Baba's turned up and he's so much higher level than even the best guys at most of the tracks.
I mean, like from the first time I've been to Shift, like I originally went when it was Chance, and then I went when it was Shift the year after, and now going again. When it was Carpet, I got my ass handed to me. When it was went to PTAL for the first year, I had no chance, couldn't get anywhere near him. This year, I'm on pace, I would say. So you know, I'm hanging with all the local guys, no problem. Baba just couldn't even get close.
No,
couldn't even get close.
But he could be very close to you anytime he wanted.
Yeah. Or he could slow down and let me follow him. Yeah. You know, that kind of thing. Just it's that versatility that was just like, God damn.
For me, I struggled a bit in Shift because it was. I think it was only the second or third track we went to start with. We went to Tetsuji and then we went somewhere else. Then we went there, and it was right at the start of the trip. And essentially, it took me until the end of the night to be able to feel comfortable because I was just too slow and struggling. But my setup was still completely wrong. My technique wasn't where it needed to be. Yeah, and I just felt like I was getting in people's way. So I didn't enjoy it until the end when it's like, I can't remember what I changed, but I made one setting change. So it was like, that was the thing that was making it drive like crap. Yeah. And but I think without a doubt, that's the slippiest track we went to. I think. Yeah, it's not the slippiest I've been to, but it was the slippiest we went to. But for me, going from Carpet to that was a bit like, I've got to change everything, and I've got to change me, and I've got to think and try, and it was a bit of an eye opener. And then you see somebody like Baba and say, he's just making it even more stupid. It's just crazy, but it's same as here. We'd gladly just go, here's my controller, try it. Yeah, here's my settings. Well, the best thing about the Japanese RC tracks was what you get here, but it was a little bit of Japan sprinkled on top in the sense of we went to prime example was Tail Slider, which was a tricky track because it was a asphalt track, but it was very slippery, but also slightly grabby in a couple of places, I think. Where if you were slightly offline, quite 100% consistent. Yeah, like every so often there'd be a little bit where you'd need to work for it. And there was a guy there who was particularly helping Jens, who was with us with his setup. Jens was struggling with setup. I got my setup okay fairly quick there, but not great until towards the end. But Jens was struggling quite badly to start with, and the guy just sort of. I mean, Jens speaks a little bit Japanese, but he's not very fluent. I was going to say talkative. Like he can speak Japanese, but he'd rather speak English and hope they get him, kind of thing. But in conversation with a stranger. Yeah. So he didn't ask for any help, but this guy sort of came over and sort of gestured that he could help him with his chassis. So I think Jens had given up by that point. Just picked it up, made a couple of tweaks, made it better. Then picked it up again, made a couple of tweaks, made it even better. Then he picked it up, sat down for about half an hour, made loads of changes, and made it really good. And Jens was really flying after that point. the same guy who I didn't even speak to the whole time I was there because I don't speak Japanese. Like, you know, I said the basics of hello and thanks and that kind of thing, but that was about it. But the same guy, later on in the day when everyone was making changes or tweaking or in the shop or whatever they were doing, the track was pretty much empty. It was just me and this guy, and he was super patient. And I'd make a mistake, and he'd just stop and wait for me to catch up. And he basically was dedicating his day to helping us, but without us knowing it until he was. You're like, why is he stopping? Oh, he's helping me out. He's letting me follow him. And he, just a really nice attitude where it was like, I'm not going to force this upon you. If you want to drive past me, you can drive past me. But the option to drive with me is available.
The options, you make it sound so formal.
Well, it kind of
would care.
It was kind of a very
participate in drifting
overly polite way of doing it, because he could have just sort of got sick of it and gone, screw this.
Yeah.
And he didn't. And by following him, I was like, okay. I learned a few things about the line that I was doing a bit quick. You know, I was transitioning too fast in a couple of places and things like that. And it was interesting because I was expecting more of that from the circuit owner, if you know what I mean, less from some random guy who just happened to be there.
Yeah.
Well, it was a bit of a special day, and they did kind of open the track just for us.
It
was quite nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So we bought a bunch of wheels off them.
We did. We bought all of them.
Yeah.
Bought all the wheels.
It's one way to say thanks, isn't it?
Thanks. We'll buy everything.
Thanks, we'll buy everything. That works. We don't do that often.
No. So what did you end up changing on your chassis while you were out there? Because you bought loads of bits.
Well, I changed chassis.
Yes.
So I ended up with my Duval.
Just before we went, actually, wasn't it?
Just before we went.
A week before we went?
Yeah. I didn't run this body in Japan. I ran a Supra that I bought from the weirdest guy I've ever met.
Yeah, he was really nice but super funny.
So I got the Duval, which obviously won't come out on the camera. We'll have to put some pictures up somewhere. But I got the old tail slider, diffuser holder, and rear weight. And then I got literally every upgrade you can buy, apart from the bottom deck. But that was, to be honest, that's through choice. I like the carbon. What else have I done?
You went a bit over the top with your toe straps, didn't you?
I got the adjusting toe straps. I have 4 of them.
It's just ridiculous. Aren't they like 45 quid each or something ridiculous?
Yeah, and I've got 4. So
Silly.
I've got all of those. But to be fair, like 2 of them were on recommendation because
was it G-Work you met one of the other works guys?
yes, Soda, he recommended I change the rear toe. I just noticed my shocker's leaking. That's good. I have a greasy finger. So he recommended I change the rear toe, and then Baba recommended I change the front toe. So I did that. That's terrible.
That's pretty basic.
It's my own fault.
Yeah,
I thought it was driving weird.
yeah. So I mean,
but yeah,
you sort of
soft, slow, apart from that noise. But it's all quite soft and slow compared to how it was, and I've been compared to how we were, I've massively increased rear grip. Like generally, I'm running my dampers a lot more upright than I have been, and balancing wheel speed and grip out a lot more.
Yeah.
The Duval is the general consensus on the Duval is that on a high-speed circuit, it's an absolute monster, which was true. We went to Tabe, and literally I stuck to Gachapin's door. I surprised myself because Gachapin is fast everywhere, and literally I wasn't. I was lucky really because I wasn't really running that well. I was kind of doing all right, and then Gachapin came out, and I got to do 2 runs with Gachapin, and by sheer chance, each run I did with Gachapin, I literally stuck to his door. And I think he was a little surprised, but I was more surprised, to be honest. So yeah, that was when it was running stock 1.3, and it was super good at high speed. But then on the smaller circuits, like at Tetsujin, it really struggled to be on counter steer, on lock.
Yeah.
And it's taken a lot of messing around to get it, to get it kind of running a decent amount of lock that, matches the body angle as well. Something I've been doing kind of inadvertently was not quite matching my steering and body angle. And that's a byproduct of running on carpet all the time because the grip is different. So I was always losing out grip on, especially at Tetsujin, I was losing out grip because I was going slightly more angle than I actually needed to use, which just made me a little bit slow going out of corners, but makes me fast going in,
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, I've changed the front gear after some messing around. I got recommended all sorts of gears in Japan that were
wrong,
horrific. So what I ended up doing was
it's quite funny. I can't remember which track it was, and we probably shouldn't name it anyway. But they one of the tracks you advised to fit some Tamiya gear.
No, Yokomo gear.
Oh yeah, Yokomo gear.
The Tamiya gear was my own invention.
The Yokomo gear that when you fit it to the car was rubbing on the gearbox.
Basically, what it makes happen is the whole chassis bind up.
Yeah.
So it's impossibly difficult to even rotate.
Yeah.
And basically, the advice was just run it for a couple of weeks and it'll be okay. Yeah. And it was like, that is a horrible idea. I'm not going to do that. So anyway, I tried for a bit to run it because I wanted to increase the CS. It drove me nuts. So we were in, I can't even remember the name of the place, that little asphalt. No, it was concrete. Where I basically spent all of my time trying to fix it. No. The other one in the middle of nowhere that we went to, near Okayama.
Near Okayama. I don't know which one you're talking about. The one near Okayama. Oh, yeah. I forget the name of it. The one that had the upstairs track as well. Yeah. We didn't go to because it's for touring cars.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know.
So anyway, that place. And I ended up buying a Tamiya gear because I could file off the back, because it was plastic gear, I could file it down easily. Obviously, I originally had a Yokomo aluminium gear, which I couldn't machine while I was in Japan, it just wasn't going to work. Then I went to this Tamiya gear that I found that had the same number of teeth, and I thought, well, I can just smash that in and it'll kind of work. So I did, and that kind of worked. And then, before I came back, I bought Spice gears. So now it's on 1.7 using Spice gears. But for anyone who's got a Deval, basically what you have to do is on your diff casing, you've got like the output where the one-way or the diff output comes out. What you basically got to do is get a reamer and remove it on the left-hand side of the chassis. So basically the bearing moves over because all of the gears are too big. So if you get the bearing to move over, the whole diff slides over. It doesn't sort of
do you know how I changed my CS?
Just with stuff that works.
Yeah, I put the parts on that go straight on.
But this is because Overdose haven't released counter steer gears for this yet. So when the Overdose counter steer gears are out, problem solved. But for now, you can use a Spice gear. You can cut off the end of that side of the diff, and then you have to shim out the shaft on the right-hand side to account for the space. So you need like 3 millimeters of spacer on the right-hand side on the one-way output. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
That makes sense. So anyway,
I think I'd rather just run
what it's done is made it 1.7, and it spins freely and there's no binding or anything like that. So anyway, when it comes to common sense tuning, England wins. So yeah, that's wonderful now. The other thing I got was the Vertex spur gear holder, which is
that was in Shift, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah. But that's super fancy. So the Vertex spur gear holder for a dip fits.
And the red is exactly the same from what I can work out.
It's very damn close. Yeah. The other thing that was really worth doing was the aluminium active hobby kinked steering ends. I mean, the MST ends will do the same thing. I just happened to get active hobby because they were there. Not particularly because they're active hobby, but They're good because they just allow that extra little bit of lock. So I've had to do a fair bit of tweaking to get some salvage lock out of it. And as you can see, I'm running pretty intense Ackerman. And that's how I get a lot of lock on my lead wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's about that. What have you got?
I've got.
What did you change on your chassis? Oh wait, you changed chassis.
I didn't.
Well, you tried.
I didn't.
You tried.
I was driving my RMX the whole time I was in Japan.
That's true.
Apart from when I borrowed other people's chassis to try them out. But I changed quite a lot on my RMX because essentially, when we'd been here, essentially the stock setup had been the best that I could come up with. So I played around with quite a lot of stuff. I'm actually running a ball diff in the rear now. I
was into it.
Yeah. And I changed my gearing quite a lot. I changed my counter steer a couple of times. I changed my caster a few times for different tracks. Essentially, I didn't change a lot. It took me a while to get used to tuning the chassis because it's a bit weird. The RMX behaves a bit differently when you tune it to what I'm used to, in terms of, I've had bibs, I've had MSs, I've had triple X's, I've had FS's. The RMX is just a little bit different. And the circuits we're at were very different to what I was used to in terms of surface. They're very different to anything I've ever seen in Europe. Even the concrete tracks weren't like concrete tracks here. So it was a bit of a learning curve, and it was fun. A little bit frustrating at times, and there was places like Shift where I could have enjoyed myself a lot more if I'd have been faster at reaching the setup that I found. But it was a surface I've never driven on.
It is. I've been in that position. It's super frustrating, isn't it?
But it's like
because you want to run with everyone and you want to have fun, but you just can't bloody keep up.
It's a case of knowing that I can set a car up, but not being sure what it is that's wrong. Because the car drives fine, it's just a bit slow. And then you do something to make it a bit faster, and it has a reverse effect. And you're like, oh, okay. And then you realise after a while, it's like, okay, it's partly the way I was driving it, it's partly this, and it's partly this, and there's several factors you just have to get right for it to work.
Do you know how I got mine to work?
No,
I'll let you in the secret. You walk up to someone who's got a similar looking chassis to yours, and just look where their dampers are.
Yeah.
Because that was, I literally went from having no grip to being on pace by just, my rear dampers were kind of all laid out because of how we were here. And I literally just went like this with the dampers. So the bottoms came in and the tops went out, and it allowed it to squat basically.
Well, the other thing I did when I was in Japan, which was very early on, was I bought a new chassis.
Which
I bought the D-like RER.
I got to show people these knuckles. They are intense.
I basically bought
the
that
insanity of that
Tetsujin. I drove a couple of them at Tetsujin, and they were quite nice. And I got offered a nice price for Mizunaga.
Twin servo.
Basically because I was in Japan and Dr. Katsu was sat opposite me with a twin servo chassis. I can just
ignore someone that's referred to as the doctor.
Exactly.
Dr. Katsu.
He's refined his setup to be very, very good. And basically, I thought, well, I can just use his chassis to mark where the servos are, and then I know everything that works. And essentially, he ended up doing it all for me.
Yeah, he just did it for you, didn't he?
He was like, we haven't got much time, I'll do this.
Like that.
Yeah, I still have that. I took that to Japan, didn't run it. Didn't finish putting it together, to be perfectly honest. It was a bit of a waste of time.
I took this to Japan, and I might as well have left it here. I didn't use it. It's a shame, because pretty good chassis, but just didn't work.
Yeah, I think
DPM.
I didn't get to build the RER because I was in a bit of a funny position where I had the option of building it at 2 o'clock in the morning in a hotel room when I was tired and had to be up at 6 o'clock in the morning, or at a track.
Tired or exhausted?
It depends.
Yeah.
Or at track where I had the option to drive with cool people like Baba or sit in my pits and build a car. It's like, I've come around the world. I'm halfway around the world. I'm not going to sit in a pit and build a car that I can do when I get home. So I never actually run the car until I got home. I've actually only run it for about half an hour and it's broken already. I managed to break a drive shaft stub axle. Pins pulled out of it, which is a bit disappointing. So I'm currently in the process of making MST drive shafts a bit, but I've got to shim things a bit to make it work. But it's good fun. I quite like the chassis, but I don't think it looks fancy. It looks crazy, but not fancy.
It looks crazy. It's basically all cut from flat sheets.
Yeah, it's all water cut from the looks of it. That's a water cut plate. That's a water cut plate as well.
Which isn't a bad thing.
It's not. It's just simple.
The problem is when that's stood next to the overdose.
Yeah,
you go,
or even this. This, the RMX has got some lovely machining on it and things like that, and that's just like similar money, not really similar finish, as it were. But it drives nice. I
like the rear toe adjustment.
Yeah,
and also the
rear toe adjustment on this chassis.
It has a very long damper stroke, doesn't it?
Has a clamp effectively and then a turnbuckle, so it's pretty easy to change. So you probably can't see that even if I do that. But that's also running a ball diff.
It's because it's in murdered out black
with a blue ball diff. I need to find
the blue Yokomo ball diff. What's the S? It's probably useful for anyone that's got.
It's standard, I think. It's 1.5. That is just a standard drift package ball diff that you buy as a retail.
Is the front of that underdriven anyway, or is it 1.5?
It's 1.5 CS.
Okay.
As far as I know, even with this, I believe. I think it's 1.54.
So it's Yokomo.
Essentially, if I change one of these pulleys, you can drop it to 1.4 because that was my plan.
Well, actually, the Yokomo pulley is 1.4 cent in.
Yeah, I don't think it counts because it's got different gears at the front and stuff as well. So I don't know.
Okay. Well,
I actually haven't calculated, to be perfectly honest, because I've barely finished putting it together. And I was just keen on running it. The cool thing is it runs different dampers front to rear. It runs a shorter damper. It runs a standard length damper at the front and a longer damper at the rear. In Japan, this is kind of known as a chassis that's really easy to set up.
And run big counter steer angle.
Yeah, it runs a bit more realistic.
The interesting thing for me is this like double belt shaft drive thing.
Yeah,
like that is,
and the high mount battery is pretty cool.
It's weird.
It seems to work all right.
It does. I mean, this thing, watching it, you can definitely see it pitch and roll and move a lot, and the damper stroke is just massive.
It's pretty cool. Looking forward to getting it repaired and working a bit better, and then starting to tune it properly. I think there's a fair few people starting to run them, but I'm hoping they don't have the problem I have, because literally half an hour of basic driving, nothing too intense, and that drive shaft was done.
Which is a shame.
Yeah.
I do like the twin servo. I like the whole Ackerman on the fly thing.
Yeah, that's something that interests me, because it's
cool.
Well, I like to play with Ackerman. I think where's the Ackerman on the 10 step? It's 10th. It's pretty late according to Mizunaga, but for me, it's kind of something I'd rather do much earlier.
Well, it is, but remember on the 10-step guide, it's based on stock settings.
Yeah.
So your stuff should be fairly legit anyway.
Yeah.
I think a big thing for me, having learned all this stuff about RC, is don't need to go that far away from stock. Because
the thing is, we've done it,
stock seconds sort of know what they're doing.
For the most part, what you have to realise is certain brands like Yokomo, their stock settings are not suited for carpet.
Yeah.
And it's not huge changes that need to be made, but the springs and dampers probably need quite
significant enough.
Yeah. You kind of have to look up the brand. Some like MST is a counter steer brand, so their stuff is set up to counter steer, and it's pretty good on carpet, it's pretty good on concrete, it's pretty good on everything else. You just have to refine a few things, and you're there. Whereas something like a DPM needs just a little bit more work because of the starting point. You take that to Yatabe and a big fast asphalt track, and it'll be awesome out of the box. But most of us don't go to somewhere that's like Yatabe very often. Yatabe was ridiculous. It was huge.
That's small, dude.
Yeah, I know, but
like it used to be so much bigger.
Well, I saw the racing on the other track, and it was huge, like too big. I wouldn't ever want to drive on a track that big. It's the only time when you'd want to know. You'd want to know that your transmitter batteries are high enough, so when you get to the other side of the track, your car isn't going to.
Yeah, it still works.
But the style at Yatabe was very interesting. It was kind of what I was expecting, but not as cool as I thought it'd be. The people are really nice. The facility is incredible. You know, the shop and the cafeteria and the various tracks that are there, it was absolutely stunning and amazing. But the speed was too important for me, and it was big speed. I had to actually go from, I had a 13.5 AccuBalance motor in my RMX, and I had to put a 10.5 in because I was getting in people's way. Because speed, a lot of people there were running 7.5, 8.5, I think.
Yeah.
And they were going at the speed of a 7.5, 8.5. They weren't, you know, they were maximising speed, and it was a little bit less style than I was hoping for, or a little bit. There was the style, but a little bit less aggression than I was hoping for. But it was fun, and I'm glad I've been. But I preferred the smaller tracks. So it's actually, bizarrely, some of the most fun tracks I had were the small ones. Super Ragecon in Osaka was amazing.
Yeah, that was only thank you.
It was tiny, way smaller than what we have here. And what was the other? There was another small track that was fun as well. I can't remember which one it was, but I mean, Shift wasn't massive, and
Shift is my favourite because it's fun.
I think Tail Slider was my favourite, but probably because I spent half of my time at Shift trying to get a setup and didn't enjoy it as much. Whereas by the time you got
your setup at Shift, it's fun, but when you're trying to get a setup, it's a struggle.
Yeah, it was too late in the day. I think I only got an hour of real fun at Shift, and but Tail Slider I got my setup pretty good early on, so it was I had the full day of fun, and we ended up staying pretty late because they were supposed to be finishing at 7 or something. We ended up leaving at 10.
Yeah, that was
something like that. Was pretty cool.
That was a terrible idea.
And yeah, it was good. It was good fun. The weird thing for me with Tail Slider was how we've seen people running on DVDs at Pro RC and things at Tail Slider circuit before, and around the outside of most of the track, there's a runoff area that's just wood.
Yeah,
you know, literally just varnished wood, I'm guessing. Yeah. And in the videos, it looks like it gets super slippy if you run off the track. It gets super grippy and spits you back on the track, which is it's a good idea because it means if you're running wide and you're going to crash, you get a bit of extra grip to get you away from the wall. Yeah. But it took me quite a while to get used to.
But when you see people like on the videos, they run it.
Yeah, they're running.
It's like a dirt drop.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, they're dirt dropping, that's cool. Like they control it on slippy stuff. So, no, it's like twice as hard as that.
It's the opposite. Yeah. They're controlling it on the super grippy stuff.
Yeah.
But it was also cool at Tail Slider with the realism and the scale scenery and stuff that they had because they had the working streetlights and stuff. And the weird thing for me in Japan, which now I look at photos and stuff from Japan, I realise it's there, but it never occurred to me before that Japan doesn't have underground power supplies anywhere. Everything is overground, everything's from a pole into the building at roof level. So at Tail Slider, all of the streetlights are linked with wire, and then it goes up on a pylon up the mountain, effectively, up to the upstairs, where it's just plugged in, I guess. But, but it looked really cool, but it's also really easy to do because it's okay to have wires going between the streetlights, you know. Whereas in Europe, there's not really wires going between streetlights.
I think the difference is like there wasn't really anything to get stuck on.
No, no, definitely not. I mean, the only thing you could get stuck on is if you didn't have reverse and you spun against the barrier. Essentially, literally, you could do anything you wanted there and you'd be fine.
But that's something we've brought more into our place now. We've started changing how we're doing the circuits and the barriers, and it's basically it's hassle free.
Yeah,
like if you spin out, it's not a problem. Whereas before, when we started, it was just basically loads of Tetsujin curving.
Yeah,
which if you're running low, you can get stuck on. Yeah, you know, if you get it up the middle of your chassis or get your wheels hooked over on a low chassis and you get stuck there.
If your body's particularly low, and it lifts the wheels up, doesn't it? Effectively, you get stuck on it. Yeah. The circuits were pretty amazing in Japan because we went to all kinds of different tracks. Went to super detailed scenery tracks like in Osaka, and then we went to places that were like hobby shop arms, where you got the Supra. That was a carpet track with some wooden batons screwed down, and very tight, very technical.
With a bank.
With a banked corner.
Like so,
a banked end. Literally, it was a long rectangle, and at one end it went up a bank.
Basically, you bottomed out as you went up it, and bottomed out as you came off it.
Yeah.
It was
It was bizarre.
It wasn't fun.
No.
No, that's a lie. It was fun
Because
for the first few laps.
Yeah.
And then it was like, yeah, they've got some old rare stuff in the shop. Let's
Yeah.
go and look at that instead.
That's some very old stuff in that shop.
Yeah.
It's quite bizarre.
Some dusty stuff. What did Jens get brand new?
He got some rare Yokomo, very long discontinued Yokomo bodies. I can't remember which ones.
How was it, like a Zama S15?
Yeah, he had some
The
bizarre
original HKS S15, but clear and
stuff.
just covered in dust.
And with faded card header tops as well, where they'd just completely been in the sun.
Yeah.
It was an amazing view out the window, man.
Dude, that honestly, if you're going to choose a location, literally you looked out the window and there's Mount Fuji, and it was just
framed
wow.
perfectly in the window, not just like behind some buildings and stuff. Like there was nothing between you and Mount Fuji. It was amazing.
When the sun was going down, it was like dropping behind the mountain, and it's all in this window. Wow, that was cool.
Pretty amazing.
That was like if you wanted a view for a circuit, that
wanted a view for a house.
God damn, yeah.
It'd be pretty much perfect for anything.
Not that mine, we're just looking at other people's gardens, basically. That's not a hobby of mine, it's just incidental.
Yeah, it was a bit, that place was good to go to, but it was, everywhere we went was I'm very glad we've been to. Even when we went, I mean, we went out for some amazing food and stuff, but even the places we went for food were pretty awesome to try.
Kokoichi Banya.
It's pretty good.
Did you see this?
I did.
Did you notice?
I didn't know what it was. I'm guessing it's a sauce.
It's the curry sauce.
Yes. Oh, you can't have that. It's pork. I'll have to have it after.
It's just flavour.
It's got pork in it. Pretty sure.
Anyway, that's a gift from Mizunaga to us.
That's cool.
Thank you, Mr. Mizunaga.
Thank you. It's very good.
Mizunaga-san, azaimashita. Itadakimasu.
It was pretty cool. What else did we do? We went to, I'm trying to think, we've definitely missed some tracks off the places we went.
Well, we have many shows. We do this every week.
Yes, that's true. That's very true.
It's more the general vibe, the vibe of the thing.
We also got to go to Formula D with some very cool passes that let us go wherever we wanted, which was pretty amazing. So we were hanging out with some pretty cool drivers. We spent quite a bit of time with Frederick Adway. Yep. Very nice guy.
Hi, Frederick. He's a very lovely man. That's literally what everybody I know says about Frederick that's friends with him. It's like, he's such a nice guy. But it is true.
Yeah, it's very
you can't describe him any other way. He is a really nice
It's quite
guy.
funny. He's a bit harsh on himself, I think, as well. He's just putting himself down with his driving.
It's interesting to meet someone like that that's clearly, very much in the limelight and has to be careful what he says and things like that. And when you meet him sort of off duty, he's a funny dude.
It was weird, man. Like literally, we got to Okayama circuit, maybe 7 o'clock, something like that, on the Friday.
Yeah.
Went straight into the cafeteria, I guess you'd call it, for some food. And by that point, it's close to the public. It's only drivers and teams and stuff like that. And we're sat there eating our dinner, and I'm sat with Frederick Asbo next to me, having a nice conversation with him. And just literally right in front of me walked Suchiya and Arido, and I was like, "Shit, I'm in Japan."
Shit, I'm in Japan.
This is where people come.
Like, to be fair, it
was a bit
even
weird.
for me. I've met Suchiya a bunch of times. I've done all this stuff. That situation, I was like, the same thing. It like sort of sat there going,
it's funny because I was sat facing the door where they walked
like,
in.
what the hell is going on?
It was quite weird because you clearly, I don't know whether you smoked his aftershave or something, but you clearly knew someone important was in the building. So you were like, just at that moment. It's pretty good.
I can't help it.
But we also had Habino was there driving the other RSI car, so
another really nice guy.
Really cool.
A lot of time for Habino. Support that dude.
Yeah, definitely. To be fair, he's one of my favourite drivers anyway because of the whole Corolla thing and some badass driving over the years. Yeah. 300 horsepower, kicking people's ass with 700 horsepower and stuff. And
to be fair, having a part of other stuff we're going to talk about, having had or have got something, a 300 plus horsepower Corolla, they're mental. Yeah, they're completely mental. A 330 horsepower
to me,
Corolla
it was super cool because we got to see how much he practiced effectively because he was at all the practice days we went to.
Well, the first day we went to, basically when we turned up, he didn't really do anything all day. He just sat in other people's cars and helped them. Yeah, and he was there in his own S14, which was just clearly his missile to mess around in a street car. And literally at the end of the day, it went out when everyone was running at the end of the day. They were all running together in a train. And Hibino went out, led the train, and just ripped the place apart for 3 laps. And I'm talking perfect, scuffing the wall, like,
for a ridiculous amount of time,
like,
when no one else was really even getting close to them.
No, just completely destroyed the whole thing. 3 laps and just pulled off and parked again. Like, oh, that was fun, you know.
Yeah.
Just like it was nothing. It was like, God,
Damn,
that's good.
He was sick for Formula D as well. He was very, very ill with a nasty cold and flu and whatever it was.
Yeah.
But he still made the effort to make sure that everyone was having a nice time and still posing for pictures, doing autographs. That was the coldest I've been in a long time.
Yeah. And you don't get cold.
I don't get cold
like
at all. Like
Eskimo or something.
I had to. Well, I went out and bought us towels
to wrap around
because we were so cold. We didn't have scarves because we didn't expect it to be that cold. And apparently, I think Taj was saying on the live stream that the guys from Formula D were saying it was about freezing. And there's no way, it was way colder for us.
It might have been in their fancy booth,
they had a
but
tent
for us, in the wind.
with a heater and all that sort of stuff. There's no way with that wind chill it was. It was amazing. We sat at the track watching all the practice, all the qualifying, all the battles and stuff, and just walk into the pits and go and hang out with Taniguchi. And we got to stand and have a good look at Saito's car, which was the fastest drift car I've seen by miles.
Dude, even Yokoi
was like, fast, was seriously fast. 900 horsepower, 2J, S15.
I think
that's
literally,
with an amazing
everybody knows Yokoi is fast. And literally, like, Yokoi and Daigo are in the final. And literally, like, Daigo he dropped the hammer, like, literally just dumped the clutch, pulled the gear, and it made an explosion. Like,
and disappeared.
And just went, it was like, what the hell just happened?
It was pretty silly.
Like, literally, there was a moment of silence
Yeah.
where everybody just went,
What?
the fuck?
Did he just get warp speed?
Yeah, it was, but it made that bang, didn't it?
Yeah. It was
bang, poof, gone. Like,
the crazy thing with that car is the extremes that he's gone to with it. It runs no side windows at all. The engine has moved right back to the point where one of the mechanics was working on the engine one of the days
in the cockpit,
and he stepped into the engine bay and stood in the gap where the engine should be.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, okay, this is pretty silly.
It's
but yeah, the cars we got to see were amazing. The Arido's GT86 that Asbo was driving was the loudest idle I've ever heard on the car.
What was Frederick saying? Oh, I want more. What was it, like 5.6 litre?
5.3 litre.
5.3 litre, and he's like, yeah, I like them when, you know, the capacity's a little small, and I'm like, damn son, I'm used to like 2 litres.
2 litres is big. But we got to see some amazing stuff all weekend because we were going to the drivers' parties and stuff, and that was we were very privileged to be able to do that, I think, because that was not something we knew we were going to be doing until we got there effectively. Like we knew we had good passes, but essentially my pass was a driver's pass, so I could go in any pit I wanted. I actually sat in the driver's briefing for Formula D, which was amazing because it made
I missed it because Jens wouldn't wake up. Thanks, Jens.
Yeah, I got to go in, and it's quite funny because Mizunaga took a photo of me. He insisted on taking a photo of me to preserve the moment, and I didn't realise until JR pointed it out because I was only looking at it on my phone that Yokoi photobombed me. He stuck into the background guy. So that's quite cool. And it was amazing because I got to see how Formula D is different because I've been around a lot of events in the UK, and it's very, very different in the way it's organised. There's a lot of different rules. There's a lot of different things that they ask for that you don't realise. There's a huge amount of pressure on the drivers, which is way more than I expected. There's so many small things that they could do, and in most competitions wouldn't matter. And in Formula D, it's a 0 instant.
It's stuff that's off the track, nothing to do with your driving as well. Like,
exactly, yeah.
If you farted in the wrong place, you got a 0.
Yeah, it's pretty harsh, but I think it's why Formula D has grown so big because essentially everything is 100% professional, and the sponsors are never ever made to look bad, and all these kinds of things. But it was pretty amazing, but just cold. Like if I had the opportunity to do it again, I'd absolutely do it again. But I'd wear 6 pairs of jeans instead of just 2.
Only the 2 pairs of jeans.
Crazy. The first day I didn't wear. I wore normal.
Very
clothes.
happy. These things happen in the life of, obviously celebrities. I ran out of pants. I had to buy some pants, so I bought Japanese lined pants. So you know when you get swimming trunks, and it's like the trunks and then the net thing that holds your junk. So it was like that, but with a thermal junk holder. I'm wearing some today.
I don't need to know about your pants.
It's super comfy.
But yeah,
in a weird sort of, my junk is in a trunk way.
we got to see loads of cool bits in Japan anyway. So I'm very glad I went, and I'm sorry to anyone who's not had their orders quite as fast as they would have otherwise had.
I'm not. We were in Japan. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was
honest.
We came back to a lot more orders than we were expecting.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Which was quite insane. It was a lot more orders than I think anyone would realise. It was, well, considering we've closed for time before, it was about 10 times more than we've ever had.
We've caught up now.
Literally, just about. I think the other day we finally caught up.
Yeah.
So we still have a lot to work on when it comes to that next time.
And there's something else we worked on, because we do have to move on. We can't just waffle about our adventures the entire time, is the circuit layout, which you guys can't see, but it's there, and there's pictures on the internet.
There's pictures on our Facebook and there's pictures around.
And why have we done this, Mr. J? Why is the circuit the way it is now?
To flip everyone's worlds upside down.
To flip that script.
Yeah. One of the things we kind of had, we've been working at certain things last year, and when we started last year, we had goals that we wanted to make people improve, or specific skills we wanted people to improve with. So we were building tracks that would enable that to improve. And one of the biggest things we were trying to do last year was improve or increase aggression. And I think we did. I think people got very aggressive with their driving, huge flicks, huge snaps, loads of aggression in the driving. And I think now we can back off a little bit and we can focus elsewhere.
I think now it's more about technique, control, and because everyone's already got the aggression, so now
when they want to,
it's right. Okay, now you need to learn to control that aggression and use it when you need it.
Absolutely, and I think it's.
But in a way,
it counts more if you show aggression for a moment and show absolute control of that aggression, than using aggression everywhere.
What we've basically done, in a way, is put people in a deep end. So if it was Shaolin monks, for example, we would have taught them the punch of death, whatever it is, first. And now what we're doing is teaching them
to stroke a cat.
To stroke a cat without killing it.
Yeah.
Shaolin monk stroking a cat without killing it.
It's essentially what we're aiming for now is a bit more control and a bit more realism with the driving. And in our competitions, which we did, I can't remember if we did it in November as well. We definitely did it for the December round. We took speed away as an important factor. Yeah. As long as you're not excessively slow or trying to run away from somebody, the speed doesn't really matter. But we kind of wanted people to demonstrate to us what they can do.
Yeah.
More than trying to match somebody else.
You don't have to run fast.
Yeah.
You have to do your run.
Yeah, and your technique has to be
What does
perfect.
your run look like?
Because when people are focusing on speed, their technique suffers because they don't want to be slow. Whereas when you can take that away, wheel speeds come right down, and there's a lot more control. There's a lot more finesse.
And we got some questions on that.
Yeah, we did, which we'll get to in a bit. But yeah, the circuit's changed. Our mentality has changed quite a bit. It was already changing before we went to Japan, and Japan just kind of sort of finalised that or reinforced our thoughts, I think. It's interesting because we're now getting to see how people are reacting to what we're doing. So it's kind of cool.
Indeed.
And already the skill level is going up, I think.
So basically, as a summarization, training on technique, realism, and gakudori, which is train drift.
Yes.
So there's a new word for you today, gakudori. Gakudori is, it's school drift. So we're all drifting in school, learning together. Which also brings us on to the Seoul RC Challenge and what we're doing for next year, which is in the questions, but we'll cover it.
First up, congratulations to Luke and Tamsi for taking third place, rear-wheel drive and four-wheel drive, respectively. I think they're about the right way around.
Is this like I'm clapping, but there's no noise because the camera's
just an idiot. Yeah, we've we've already been planning for actually quite some time to make changes to the way we ran the championship. We announced at the start of last year that there'd be 12 rounds for 2014, and so we had to have 12 rounds. And we announced that we were going to change the track every month, and we did, apart from the last month, but we changed what you were doing in the competition for the last round. This year we're doing a lot less rounds because it takes a lot of effort from our point, but we felt like we were changing the track too often and people weren't learning enough before we changed the track.
We won't get the most out of each track.
Including ourselves. So what we've basically
speak for yourself. No.
what we've decided to do is we're changing the track a lot less often, probably every 2 months, but we're going to sort of play it by ear a bit this year, and we might change what we're doing depending on how it goes down and how we feel like people are progressing, but also how people like each track. If people love a track, it can stay a little bit longer. If people aren't enjoying the track so much, we might change it. Might not, it kind of depends.
Hopefully every track will be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, people seem to love this track. Everyone that's driven on it seems to enjoy it. So
I love this track. It's fun.
Yeah, it is, and it's very easy to be very close to people because they're not running away from you.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's very good. We're planning on, at this point, we will make final announcements probably next week when we'll do a blog post with all the actual final details in. But essentially, we're going to run 6 rounds this year, 6 championship rounds and 2 special rounds. So the special rounds will be one-off events with a winner decided on the day, without points that can contribute to the championship. And the 6 rounds will be a traditional championship like we ran last year with the same point scoring system. We're going to announce dates next week, and so hopefully you can get the time off work if required and things like that, but we'll be able to announce everything for the full year by next Friday, hopefully. So hopefully on the show next week, we'll have all the dates and all the information.
We shall announce them in a nice little row.
Yes, definitely. We're going to change the way we judge slightly, or what we're looking for, but everything will be announced at each event, and I think we're going to commit a little bit less at the start of the year as to how everything will be done for the rest of the year, because it might come in 4 months' time we want to change things a little bit. We go to the World Championships in May, and we might come back with a slightly different mentality, or we might come back and have seen something cool that we want to focus on a little bit more.
Yeah.
We're going to try and change things up a little bit when we're doing the events. So we have some plans to bring in a bit of equipment and a different system. I'm hoping to be able to do a full online service effectively, so you can check the championships whenever you want, and all the records will be online. We're also going to put some stats up and things like that, so people can see who's scored the most points in qualifying over the year and that kind of thing, and your average qualifying result for the year and all this sort of stuff. But there's a lot of work involved to do that. Currently, we're very short on time, so we're very busy. So
I mean, we could technically make another announcement, though, couldn't we?
We probably can. We're also planning to hire somebody very soon, so we'll be getting some help coming in fairly soon. We will be obviously posting this up next week when we have actual job specs and stuff finalised. But the plan is that we'll be hiring somebody by the end of January if possible, and that will free up a lot of time.
We can do more stuff.
Exactly. It means we can just put more of our plans into place. There will probably be, I'm going to guess, a competition towards the end of February as the first round. We will decide dates next week. We've got to look at when other people are having events and when there's full-size events on and things like that. So it takes quite a lot to plan the calendar, and we've just been too busy catching up from Christmas in Japan.
But we're getting there.
Getting there. So yeah, it was pretty exciting times. We've got lots of cool stuff going. One thing we didn't mention when we were in Japan, actually, and I don't know if we should save it next week, but we got to go to Acuvance, the head office, which was very cool to finally meet the people that we talk to all the time, and we got to learn some cool stuff about the products that we currently have, about the updates they're doing, the updates that they've done, and some stuff that's coming. And hopefully, I'm going to guess by the end of this month, we should have a really cool announcement on their new product.
And we are now officially Acuvance support drivers, I believe.
Yes, we kind of were anyway, to be honest.
Well,
but
it's
different when somebody hands you stuff in person rather than a box turning up. We've got some nice gifts from them as well. That tea's amazing.
Yep, and Mizunaga is now also on Acuvance.
Mizunaga is now hooked up.
You're welcome.
But it's pretty cool. We got to go to dinner with the guys as well. We went to a restaurant which I can't remember what it was called. It was kind of like an Instacart where you cook your own food, but different.
Oh, it was Osaka, I think. I forgot the name of it. Yeah, you cook your own. It's Osaka omelets.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Very
speaking of free stuff, while we were there, we also got those. I'm going to do it, man. I'm going to do it.
We've got a whole load of. Well, in fact, we got all of the Tetsuji and Super.
Yeah, so they're the ones.
Which is pretty lucky.
They're the ones you can't buy yet.
Yeah.
And we've seen some stuff.
Yeah.
There is some good stuff coming.
Yeah, they're making some cool stuff. It's kind of a. Well, there's a few small issues with the Super Rim, isn't there? Why aren't they on the back of your car, Mitto?
I can't get them on there.
They don't fit.
Which is however, to be fair, I haven't tried. I've only tried at my standard offset, but just have caution because so obviously the inner rim on these is quite thick.
Yeah.
So there are.
I had a similar issue with my RMX because of the roll center adjustment I make on the rear of my chassis.
Well, I've had the same thing.
I actually had a problem at one of the tracks where I thought I had a problem with my ball diff, and I was taking stuff apart, and it turns out that one of my wheels wasn't assembled properly. Even though it clicked when I put it together, it wasn't quite all the way in. So my wheel was effectively egg-shaped, and so when I checked the clearance on the wheel, there was no problem.
Basically, there's if you look at the rims where the locators are, there's a little strengthening tab at the back, which you kind of need to unstrengthen, and then you'll get a little bit more out of it. But otherwise, the rim designs are cool.
Yeah, they're cool.
They're strong.
I like the mesh one, the Dahlia.
The Dahlia. I like these.
Jasmine.
The Jasmine.
They're all being named after ladies.
Yeah. Of the night.
Yes, we got to see some cool wheels. Got to see some cool finishes. You got some special finished ones, didn't you, from Mizunanga?
Yeah, then
they're not being released, I don't believe. But they're just nice presents. Same as Ty's got the same as Ponta with the pink ones that are just presents for new people.
Yeah, Taj has one of 3 pink sets in the world. So, Taj, you're very lucky.
Yeah, we got to do some.
Yeah, they're cool.
So what's next?
Question time.
Question time.
Question time.
We have some.
Because we waffle good, man.
I know. Right.
We always waffle too long. The show's supposed to be an hour.
To be fair, we could have talked about
every time.
We could have talked about a lot of stuff that we haven't talked about from Japan. There's plenty of time. We'll do it later, I'm sure.
We need to start later because I'm only just waking up now.
Taj has asked, what is the first thing you learned in Japan that you're going to use at Solar RC? I would probably
Japanese, bitch. No.
I'm probably going to say a different mentality to set up. I think for me,
I would agree with that.
The first thing I've done is I'm no longer running GA26 rears, which everybody does here. And everybody has done that since we opened effectively because you've got a lot more rear grip and allow for crazy aggressive snaps. I've now switched to CSR all round and I'm slowing myself down and paying a lot more attention to technique. I've also allowing a lot more roll. I'm back to a softer setup.
The key thing for me, the best thing I learned was from Renato, which potentially could be just by chance or because Renato speaks a reasonable amount of English.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, he does. He's pretty good at English and Portuguese.
I figured that.
But basically, he was telling me about wheel speeds, which is part of Andy Brunton's question, I believe.
We'll get to that in a bit.
CS.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of answers it. And basically, the concept Renato explained that was even though I'm currently running 1.7, as I'm drifting, my front and rear wheel speed should be the same. And actually to be on good counter steer, my front wheel speed should be faster than my rear wheel speed, even though it's CS, which sounds, well, impossible basically. But if you try and drive that way and set your car up that way with the bias on the front wheels, it makes sense. And it suddenly starts working. Because obviously you have to take into account the
Well,
lock, the
I'll
rolling
get to Andy's
speed, the
question
slip.
now. Well, I'll get to a serious question now. So he's been asked a couple of times recently what bearing FDR has on drifting and also CS ratio in regards to settings, rather than the generic wrong answer, more CS, more lock. I want to hear about wheel spin. Well, essentially, wheel spin, well, FDR governs wheel speed.
As does counter steer.
Yes, exactly. So if you're running an FDR that increases your wheel spin, you have to work harder to control your wheel spin effectively.
Yeah, effectively.
And the same with CS. If it's, to me, stuff like front Korogashi is easier to learn if you're on bigger CS. It's not necessarily for everyone, because I learn things very differently to a lot of people. But for me, I always used to struggle if I dropped my CS to 1.5 and be fine if I ran 2.0, because the difference between front and rear wheel speeds is bigger, so it's more obvious when you
Yeah,
more
for
room to get it
learning
right.
front Korogashi
Yeah, exactly,
only.
yeah.
Yeah.
But as I've improved a little bit, it's not necessarily the case. I mean, I am currently running just under 1.8 on the RMX. I was running 1.3 at one point, 1.4 again. I came back from Japan, it was running 1.42, I think it might have been. And I left it like that until last week, and it was fine. Yeah, you know, CS, depending on whether you've got a Yokomo or an MST, or basically because of the different systems, certain chassis will overdrive the rear to CS than
Some underdrive the front.
underdrive the front. If you're underdriving the front, generally your life is a bit easier, because you're reducing speeds rather than increasing speeds, and just gives you a little bit more control,
and it makes you a little bit faster. Like adding CS
essentially
with a front underdrive,
more wheel
makes it a little
speed
faster.
can mean more wheel spin, which means less speed because you're wasting energy.
Yeah.
So the balance is getting the right amount of wheel speed so that you're not wheel spinning and you don't want to be.
Yeah.
Which is quite hard to do, and quite hard to even realise when you've got it right until you've done it. And then when it's wrong, it's very obvious.
Yeah. Or until you drive some Japanese professional's car and go, wow, my settings suck.
Yeah. It's quite funny because the bizarre thing in Japan is there's a lot of circuits, and most people drive at the same circuit, maybe a handful of circuits at the most, but they generally stick to the same kind of circuit. So their car is nailed for setup because they drive regularly. They've been doing it for a long time. Their setup is perfect for that track generally, or perfect for them on that track. So you can pick up anyone's car in Japan, drive it, and you're like, that's good. I mean, I drove Dr. Katsu's RER, and instantly it felt completely different to anything I'd ever driven before. And that was because everything was perfect on a surface I've never driven before.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the chassis that was different, or it was very different, but it was perfectly set up for the strange surface. But it took me a while to realise I had to drive a few other people's cars on other surfaces I've never driven on before, and suddenly realised that actually it's because they're very experienced on there, and that's chassis perfectly suits that setup. That's that surface, and we you take your car that's from a foreign surface, effectively with our carpet that's very unique, put it on a different surface, and it just doesn't work because it's too different, and the layout is very different. I mean, Tetsujin is a very long, narrow track, and you can get up some good speed. But you can also go really slow. Your technique's bad, and I found it very difficult to get my gearing right on a lot of tracks because the surface was so much slippier than I was used to. But when I got it right, it's like, that's right now, that's fixed. Whereas it took me.
But that could be half a turn of a spring, and that was the frustrating thing.
So it could have been anything, but I worked out initially that my FDR was completely wrong for the surface that I was on at. I can't remember which track it was, but one of the tracks we were at, realised it was completely wrong, and that was why I'd been struggling for the first 4 tracks.
Yeah.
And I'd been changing everything but my gearing because it didn't feel like the motor was at the wrong speed or anything like that. It just happened to be.
My FDR's very different now to what it's ever been, really. I've gone much bigger and spur and much smaller on pinions.
Well, I think we did that a few years ago at DreamWorks, but we
maybe, but
we've
like what am I
gone back to it.
an 88 I'm on at the minute.
It's like
And that-
98, 19 or something.
Yeah, 19. Good guess. But I was on a 92. And I've only gone back up a bit because we're on carpet again.
Yeah.
So, man, this thing needs to clean.
Yeah, I thought that before. But, so anyway, I'll let you get to Andy's second part about the CS in relation to wheel speed.
Well, I kind of answered it. You know, that's how Renato put it. So, controlling wheel speed through technique rather than just using CS to make the arse end step around.
Yeah.
Come back to Soul, Andy, and drive, and it'll explain it better. It's a kind of a hands-on thing where you need to feel it and experience it rather than
it's
just
the thing that I worked out is it's worth having a handful of spare gears and a handful of pinions and playing with your different FDR and having a few different CS options and playing with it and seeing the different combinations of gearing and CS, and one of them will just feel so much better than the rest if you get it right, obviously. If one of your 5 or 4 options or whatever is right, you can tell it's right.
What I will point out is that if you ask me what my FDR is, I will say I don't know, because it's
not done on a calculator.
It's a feeling-based thing.
I didn't know what mine was, but only because I did calculate it to see why. It's like, why does that suddenly work? Like, what's that on now? So I did calculate it, but I can't remember what it got to. It was very low at one point, and it went very high.
I literally have no idea.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But Arno, hello Arno. He's how much effect does stabilizers on the rear axle on a high grip surface have? I'm guessing.
Depends on
because we went from full grip chassis with stabilizers to soft suspension on drift spec chassis, and now I see them Japanese drivers putting stabilizers in the rear. Before I went to Japan, I was running stabilizers, an anti-roll bar as we call them, constantly. For the last year, I ran an anti-roll bar on every chassis, essentially. It essentially makes the rear end more consistent. It's less change, less camber change, because you're restricting the amount of roll. And the roll on the back end of most chassis will have a massive effect on your camber. So you'll actually load the car up into a corner, get a load of roll, and suddenly lose your grip, even though the car's just been loaded the second before, which is something I didn't like. It's less important on the tyre like a CSR, because you've generally got roughly the same contact patch across the roll anyway, and the camber change. Anti-roll bars can give you, they can tweak your the feeling of the chassis as well, and give you a bit of understeer and things like that. If you get if you put a massively thicker anti-roll bar on, it can be wrong. If you put a thin one on, it can have not enough effect. It's about finding the balance. It's
back to the 10-step guide, isn't it?
It's
controlling roll speed.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you're putting roll bars on and going much softer on the dampers, you kind of answered your own question. Because obviously the roll bar has a torsional strength, which does affect damping, of course, especially if you're locking your roll bars out.
Yeah.
If you are, for example, on the Yokomos, you do them in the diff. And if you pinch the roll bar with the grub screw, then it's going to lock that roll bar out, and it's going to act.
You'll be able to see that.
It's going to act as a spring.
But they're very much worth having if you're running an anti-roll bar. The aluminium anti-roll bar stoppers, effectively. I think we've called them that. Officially, MST's name is anti-roll bar. Aluminium stabilizer rod stopper. You get 4 in the pack, and basically, what you on the MSTs, I haven't got one fitted right now, but you would have the clamps that hold it in place here, and like a Yokomo, there's normally a grub screw that goes through and clamps down onto the anti-roll bar if you over tighten it. A better way of doing that is fit the clamps in place, but then you put these stoppers, which are just aluminium collars basically with a grub screw on, to the anti-roll bar, and it doesn't, in no way does it
restrict the movement. So obviously you don't get
still
the added
rotates,
spring effect.
It really makes a difference, makes them work.
Because the other thing that can happen is when you grub screw them in, they can get tweaked.
Yeah.
So effectively, you have softened your dampers to, increase your roll.
What are the questions?
But then restricted the roll by fitting the anti-roll bar. So sort of 6 and 2 3s really.
Yeah. I mean, it's always worth playing with an anti-roll bar for sure. I think for every chassis, anyone who's serious and goes to competitions at different tracks and things like that, you should have anti-roll bars in your pit bag for sure.
Yeah, I'd agree with
they
that.
can massively transform the chassis if you in the right situation. They can make it worse if you use them wrong, but you'll know straight away. If you the way I always work with settings, which people mock me sometimes for it, but if I'm going to put an anti-roll bar on, I'll put the thickest on to see how much of an effect having an anti-roll bar does, and then if it's too much,
you'll go full drama.
Yeah, I go to the extreme so that I can see the maximum effect that's going to have, and then I'll back it off if I need to back it off, because I find it easier. Because if I put the thinnest anti-roll bar on, it doesn't have that much of an effect. Maybe
it does. It's just subtle.
Yeah, but I'm not subtle, so maybe I need something a bit more obvious. I think we've pretty much covered most of our questions. There's a few questions about the Soul RC Challenge for 2015. We've answered it.
Coming soon.
We'll have all the information for sure by the end of next week. We've pretty much decided everything, but we've got to start planning it a little bit better and ordering a few bits in to make sure that we're there. We're an idiot. And basically, yeah, we've got everything that we need to get sorted pretty much, but we just got to be sure before we announce stuff, because nobody likes us to backtrack if we change our minds. So.
No. And finally, in that case,
yes,
we also have drift cars.
Yay!
Yay! Full-size drift cars.
As of about 3 hours ago, I picked mine up.
Jay has now got a...
I got my old car back.
Yeah.
It's a car I had.
328, is it?
328 Sport Touring, E36. Just
Touring?
Yeah.
Is it touring?
How did you not know?
I didn't realise that at all.
Nah, yeah, it's a
on BBS wheels.
On BBS forged wheels.
Nice.
Which is cool. It's a car I had when I was at Driftworks, and Bon helped me build. And it was very good. Did a few track days in it. Really liked it. It was done on a budget, but worked very well. And yeah, I bought it back.
So
it's not
coming soon.
It's not quite the same as it was when I got rid of it. It's got
James
issues, but
dicking around.
In about 2 weeks' time, you'll probably have me looking very sad on here. I crashed it. It's been a while since I've driven anything.
That's okay, man. That's what it's for.
But going to Japan's basically reignited my passion for drifting again. So
Ditto.
I needed to get
I now have the Corolla madness.
I needed to get myself a fun car again. So I've got a fun car. Now I can.
So anyway,
some fun.
Add drifting to your RC drifting.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it only makes sense, and one helps you do the other better.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
And we're just got to work out how to pay for it.
Yeah. But now we're both poor.
Yes.
But anyway,
so
that's kind of it.
That's pretty much it for this week. We'll have a bit more of a structure next week as normal, and we'll know what we're doing with a fair few more things. But as I say, we've been a bit busy trying to catch up with the orders from Japan and
however, we have got cream eggs back.
Cream eggs are back in stock.
So when we go offline, there's a big pile of them there.
Yep.
And I'm going to put those in my face.
Yes.
So if you're wondering what happens after we turn the camera off,
if you wonder why Mitto looks fatter next week, because he ate half a box of
if I just said next week, I lost weight in Japan. Please help.
Yeah, I did. But that's probably the beers every night.
Yeah, that wouldn't help.
I had quite a desire when I was in Japan to try everything. So I'd go into a shop and buy 20 drinks. It's like, I can't read what any of these are. We'll just buy them and see what they are.
Anyway, we're off on one about Japan again.
It's going to happen a lot for next year.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, thanks for tuning in and watching us waffle.
Yeah.
And favorite this shit. Become a Viking today. I'm gonna keep ripping that dude because he's awesome.
You can't just steal somebody else's saying it, man. At least got a
credit to Robaz.
Robaz, YouTube user Robaz.
Yeah, look at him, he's funny.
But yeah, basically we'll have a load of stuff for you next week, hopefully, and maybe some new stock if it arrives in time.
Yes.
But yeah, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week.
Peace out, brethren.
Bye for now. That's such a